The junta claims there are no hard feelings. It's all business. It has just gone a different way, opting for assistance from Russia instead of the West. Niger has every right to do that, of course. It's a sovereign nation that is entitled to pick its partners. But the withdrawal paints the US in a poor light. It wasn't allowed to stay, despite having spent millions on Niger's defense. That is a failure of US diplomacy. And it shows that America's clout around the world has started to shrink.
Yankee go home. That's the message from Niger's junta to the some 1,000 American troops stationed in the country.
The
American presence on the territory of the Republic of Niger is illegal and violates all the constitutional and democratic rules.
Niamey's decision to tear up a military cooperation agreement signed in 2012 follows a coup d'etat last July. With softer diplomacy than France, the United States didn't call it a coup until months later. And despite a visit from an American delegation last week, Niger has made its mind up.
We are aware of the statement from the CNSP in Niger, which follows frank discussions at senior levels in Niamey this week about our concerns with the CNSP's trajectory.
Niger was one of the West's last allies in the Sahel region. In recent years, the United States had begun operating a major surveillance base in the city of Agadez, built at a cost of more than $100 million. Washington hoped its pact with Niger wouldn't just be to fight terrorism, but also stem the growing influence of Russia and its Wagner mercenaries in the region. Not so. The junta's televised address name-checked Russia as an important partner.
Do you remember when the United States of America wanted to bring its base to Nigeria? Do you remember that? Nigerians were not happy about it. Nigerians revolted. They don't want what happened to Burkina Faso, Niger and Mali to happen to them. And so most of them refused. You understand? And now in Niger, we've always had the US military. And now Niger has decided to kick them out. US military is now leaving Niger. These might be a good story to Africans. It might be a bad story to those who are Africans, to those who are Americans or in the American military. To get a full depth of this video, let's watch this and then I'll share with you my thoughts by the end of the video.
Turn our attention to Africa, to Niger in the west, where an exodus is taking place. An exodus of US military personnel. About 1,000 American troops are in Niger. They were deployed to combat terrorism. This country has been hit by a terror insurgency. The previous government was trying to counter it with the help of French and American soldiers. But a coup took place in Niger last year. The junta ousted the French as soon as they took power. But they let the Americans stay for a while. Now it seems that the junta is done with the US as well. Niger and the US negotiated a withdrawal deal last month. The US has till September to leave. So the soldiers have begun packing up. Here's our report.
A few days ago, there was a ceremony in Niger, a relatively somber procession. There were just soldiers in attendance, troops from two countries, the home nation, Niger, and US military personnel. The troops gathered around an aircraft, an American military transportation plane, a C-17 Globemaster III. The troops had gathered around the aircraft to watch it depart.
The June 7th flight of the U.S. Air Force's C-17 Globemaster III from Niamey Air Force Base 101 marks the start of a series of wide-body aircraft rotations to repatriate personnel and equipment in accordance with the May 19, 2024 agreement. Since the agreement on the withdrawal of U.S. troops was signed on May 19, 2024, more than 269 of the 946 troops and several tons of equipment have already left Niger.
The US military is on the clock. They have to leave Niger by September 15th. That means the US has about 3 months. 3 months to pack up all their equipment and make their way out of Niger. It won't be easy, because the US has invested a lot in Niger's defensive capabilities over the years. The Americans were using 2 air bases in Niger, called Airbase 101 and Airbase 201. 101 was a common base, shared by the Americans and the French. It's located in Niger's capital, Niamey. The US was initially using this for its aerial counter-terrorism operations. But a few years ago, Washington decided it needed a new location, a base closer to the terrorists. So between 2016 and 2019, they built another base, Air Base 201. It's located near the city of Agadez. The base was specialized for MQ-9 Reaper drones. The Americans built the base at a cost of over $100 million, but now they have to dismantle it, take it apart and ship out the pieces, or risk their equipment falling into enemy hands. The US has experienced this already, when it withdrew its forces from Afghanistan. The Taliban now use the American weapons and vehicles left behind. The US has 3 months to avoid a similar scenario in Niger. But this time, it won't be militants who'll take over the equipment. It might be the Russians. Russian soldiers are already in Air Base 101, the base in Niger's capital Niamey. After the Americans leave, the Russians will be free to use Air Base 201 as well. Considering the current hostilities between the two nations, it would be a loss of face for the US if Russian troops got hold of American equipment. Niger is trying to soften this blow.
Finally, the two parties reiterate that this withdrawal of American forces will have no impact on current relations between the Republic of Niger and the United States of America.
Now, something is happening in the world right now that I think you as an African, or you as an African American, or anyone of African descent who is watching should consider to know. Because the United States of America is falling, the USA is crashing by itself. I'm saying this following the happenings that is happening all over the world, in Africa, outside Africa. First of all, we've seen the United States dollar. The US dollar for the longest time has been the world reserve currency. And now with the introduction of BRICS, we saw how the US dollar was threatened. Right now, the US dollar against my own Kenya shillings currency is going for 128 Kenya shillings. It was up to 160. Now it's fallen up to 128. That is 32 shillings drop. It's a lot for every single dollar. And now the other day we also saw that the country of Namibia revoked visa-free entries for some of these European countries, including American countries such as Canada and the United States of America. It was easy for Americans and Europeans to move to Namibia, move to Africa. But now Namibia has set an example that if you want to move to our country, what you need to do is you have to pay visa just like any other person. This is followed after. This is because Namibia allowed, or rather Namibia invited very many countries for visa-free entry into Namibia. Namibia was expecting for these countries to do so as well. Namibia was expecting for these countries to let them be visa-free. But it turns out some countries, which were 31 countries I guess, of these 31 countries was Canada and USA. They refused. They want that if Namibian moves from Namibia to USA, they have to present their visa. But when a person from the US comes to Namibia, they don't present their visa. Namibia said no. If our people are going to present visa, your people are going to present visa. This shows that the image that the United States was having, the big giant it was, it's not what it is right now. You should read signs, read handwritings on the wall. You understand? United States is not the United States that we once knew. It's changing, and it's changing rapidly. Also, we've seen that the United States has been forced to take out its military from Niger. Yes, United States is removing its military from Niger. This is following after we saw the French army, the French military were forced to leave Niger after the coup. This is because the Niger government has been exploited so long and so much by these Western countries. And so It was France, and now it's the United States of America. Also remember, the people of Niger and those West African countries forced the people of America to share the same base with the Russians. You know what happens. You know, Russia and USA have always been fighting one another for the longest time possible. For the longest time I can remember, these two countries have been fighting one another. And now sharing a base, or rather being told to share a base, was something like telling them, leave our country, but in a polite way. Africans were so polite. So it's interesting what is happening around the world today, because that Western image, that Western oppression is slowly doing away. We are slowly doing away with it. We don't need that black oppression. We don't need that Western oppression no more. Africans and African Americans, it's high time we stand up and we focus on building ourselves. Invest on your own people, support your own people, support your Africans, support your own people. That is the best thing you can do. If you want to travel in your own African countries. Don't spend your money outside. Spend your money in your own country here. The Chinese are not foolish to realize the potential that Africa has. So you, an African American who might be blessed with the cash, remember to come to Africa and invest to your own people. That is what I can tell you right now. And remember, the world is changing. The United States of America is no longer the world superpower. It's crashing and it's falling very, very fast. It's now that Niger has pushed out the US military. We don't know what will happen tomorrow with those other US militaries in those other countries. We heard the other day that they wanted to come to Nigeria. Nigerians were not happy about it. That is my take on this video. I hope you find value and you are able to subscribe. See you in the next one.